From the perspective of someone who studies 20th century popular culture, where you start to see a kind of amping up of I guess, based on the numbers, of people getting shot at school, right? Kent State, Jackson State. But I think as far as this way of thinking is concerned, I mean, it is Columbine.
The investigation into the high school massacre is slow-moving and dangerous. The two gunmen who went on the rampage booby-trapped the building and even themselves. All day long, investigators...
The site today of a mass shooting, and this time, gunfire aimed at elementary school children.
A heartbreaking day in Florida, and sadly an all too familiar one. 17 people are now confirmed dead. We know at least 3 people still in critical condition, after police say that a shooter, believed to be just 19 years old, opened fire at his former high school.
Certainly from a morbid, kind of live leak kind of angle, the security cameras from Columbine were an introduction to everybody. It's the fact that Columbine, we saw it. You know, it was early days. Everyone talks about how 9/11 was one of those events that happened just before we all had cameras all the time, right? And so the footage for 9/11 is historically valuable because there's not a lot of it. I mean, Heathers was only less than a decade before the sort of now kind of uncomfortable film about destroying a school and shooting it all up. And then they almost were the heroes in that film. But it also kind of glorified the idea, you know, burn down the school, like, you know, destroy school, you know, Alice Cooper, et cetera. But Columbine kind of acted out on it. Columbine was, I think, one of the first times we really saw it happen and had some visual documentary evidence of it.
Like every time you turn on the news or check your news feed or however it is you get your news, there's a new shooting, and all you see happening around you is violence and innocent lives being lost. I mean, I think it's really inspiring and empowering to see the students from Parkland doing all the stuff that they've done and speaking out and being able to have all these platforms available to them that people, not just in this country, in their neighborhoods, but around the world, can hear what they have to say.
I think that is an increasing problem. I think that it's not that we need to get numb to it, we just need to respond to it. And I don't think people are talking a lot about the response versus talking about whether or not it's a gun regulation issue or a mental health issue. I feel like people would rather just turn inward and just kind of put this wall up and not deal with it, but that doesn't stop it from happening.
This is a big deal. This may change everything. And really all it changed was that I now have to do active shooter training pretty regularly, and all the doors have big red locks on them. But ultimately, questions of mental health, nature, nurture, and how do we sort of diagnose this. So the question is, do you need to feel threatened by it? Do you need to worry about getting shot in your classroom to care about it? Do you need to feel empathy for other people who have been shot?
So my girlfriend and I actually missed the one at Charlotte by about 10 minutes. It was the last day of classes. My professor actually let us out early. So we had just gotten off campus. So, I mean, that took about 7 minutes in total. So 3 minutes or so off campus, we started getting all these texts from the 9R alert system basically saying there was an active shooter, it's not a drill. And then I just started getting pouring in some phone calls from friends like, hey, where are you, all right? Later on, I found out it was the building right next to mine, so we walked right past it.
Say just like a UNCW student in 2019, you know, we've never had a shooting here. We've had a lot of stuff happen. We had a false alarm one year, which I've mentioned before, where someone actually sent out the school shooting shelter in place button, but it's because they were testing it. But it took them about 20 minutes to figure out what was going on. And so I was in this room where we are sheltering with a couple of students who are absolutely terrified. think now the question of school shootings for college students is, yes, it's a threat to you. Do you want to continue to support or live in a country where it's regular? There has to be some ground up shift in the way we think about what it is that we are trying to do. And so the school shooting, I think, is just, it's a horrible, weird American thing, but it's also a stand-in for a lot of other problems we haven't even begun to figure out yet. So I think the school shooting for us, once those big moments happen, it's now become this sort of exercise in typical American political activity.